All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Uh, I missed all of you last week while I was at work and not doing YouTube, but here I am. I know you've all missed me, I'm sure. So we're back. The gang is back. Okay, so joining me today is my host and co-host Peter, as always. Welcome, and he's muted as always.
Muted as always. Now he's not. Okay,
Well,
so yeah, I mean, it was a little bit stressful at the start of this because I was setting up two different live streams. One that's going
mhm.
out now, and the other one's going out later.
Yeah.
So,
And then also joining us is Nestlig. Welcome back.
Hello, welcome. It's good to be back, as always.
Yeah, so um, tonight's kind of an interesting night. It's the first presidential debate between Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and that'll be in an hour. So if our view count drops to 0 at 8 o'clock, I won't be surprised. And I won't blame any of you, just so you know. Because I'm sure it will be hilarious. So, well, a few things before we. Hmm?
I said it's going to be a thing.
It is definitely going to be a thing that
Definitely, yeah.
happens. Stuff
Yes.
and things will happen.
Yes.
Mayhem and destruction.
That happens either way. Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Which has been my
Okay.
entire week, by the way, because I got a new computer, so I need to transfer everything from the old computer to the new computer. And surprisingly, so far, I've been able to set everything for live streaming up, so I could basically live stream from the new computer. Everything
Oh, yeah?
works, and I'm scared out of my mind because everything works.
Fair enough.
It usually doesn't. So I don't know what I did wrong, but so far everything I need to work works.
So far, so good.
Scary.
Okay. Well, so okay, so we have a few people watching right now. Well, PZ, I actually have some good news. We're going to talk about some science first before we get into the
Yay.
Kurt Wise stuff. Because a really interesting paper came out today, and I'm very sad that we already published the brine shrimp's tail, but we'll talk about it. Okay, first and foremost, Icarus, Caden Slinker, Mr. Cliff, Moo, Katina, Devon, DM, Google Debunker Wing, Eddie McCoy, PZ Myers, Infidel. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you all joining us today. Okay, so before we get into the stupid stuff, some really cool news came out today. Actually, a couple of really cool, interesting papers. Well, I was reading an interesting review article that led me to a paper that came out a couple of years ago. But the first one is a paper that came out just what, yesterday, or no, today actually. This paper was dropped in Science. It is titled "Rapid Volcanic Ash Entombment Reveals the 3D Anatomy of Cambrian Trilobites." So this paper is about a trilobite or trilobite specimens that are extremely well preserved. They even preserve, what was formerly soft tissue, but isn't anymore. It's all rock. So let's see. Previously unknown anatomy includes a soft tissue labrum attached to the hypostome, a slit-like mouth, and distinctive cephalic feeding appendages. Our findings resolve controversy over whether the trilobite hypostome is the labrum or incorporates it, and establish crown group euarthropod homologies in trilobites. So this stuff is really cool. So
Does it say whether trilobites are closer to mandibulates or closer to the chelicerates?
I can't get it. It's not open access. I can't hack it. And so I had to send it off to the interlibrary loan. And so maybe in a few days it'll come back and I can send that to you, Nestle. But as of right now, I don't have it. But I think that's really cool that they resolve arthropods, or they resolve trilobites as having euarthropod homologies, because There is one hypothesis that's kind of popular right now. It's that like trilobites are sister to chelicerates, we were looking at a paper for the brine shrimp's tail, which was the last ancestor's tail video we put out, that argued trilobites are like very derived stem arthropods. So there's that back and forth going on, which makes sense, of course. I mean, there are a whole bunch of stem arthropods and crown arthropods, and it makes sense that there are a bunch of very derived stem arthropods and very basal crown arthropods, and they're all kind of, they're all there. We have this very nice phylogeny of like so many different Cambrian arthropods. It's really cool. Of course, that just means I'm sure at the Discovery Institute they're just going to say, it's too I don't know, complex or something for the evolutionists, something like that. So, I mean, they always do, don't they? It's always got to be the evolutionists can't explain it because it's too complex, or we can't explain it because it's too simple, or we can't explain it because it's right exactly where we expected it to be, or it's not where we expected it to be. It's always something. There's always some reason evolution cannot explain it, right? So
I was told this week.
Something information, something. Yeah.
I was told this week we can't explain, or we never see a dog turning into a cat, and therefore speciation doesn't happen.
I mean, they are correct in that we never see dogs turning into cats. That is true.
Yes. But that was their defeat to evolution, and then I had to explain. And someone made a comment, so we're all still fish, and I said we're all still fish, but it's actually a bad thing to say because fish is a colloquial term. It's not a biological term. So you should say we are chordates, we are vertebrates, and so on. Mm-hmm. And it kept going back. So, but why are we still fish?
Yeah, when I was debating with an idiot on Twitter earlier today. I mean, if I'm on Twitter, it goes without saying, right? I'm debating an idiot.
Yeah.
And this guy was arguing that, what did I even say? I said what did I say to kick it off? I don't remember. I just closed out of Twitter. Dang it. I'm gonna steal
Smitty's comment. Foxes are dogs turning into cats, and hyenas are cats turning into dogs.
True. Oh, this is what I said. I ratioed this guy. So Richard Dawkins watched that Joe Rogan clip of Tucker Carlson where he's on and he's talking with Joe about how evolution not real, which very minor credit to Joe Rogan. At least he's, he acknowledges that the earth is round, evolution is true, climate change is real. So very small. You got to hand it to him for him. The bar is on the floor.
You passed the bar that has been set.
Correct. Yeah, you stepped over it. Yeah, exactly. So Tucker was on there, and Joe kind of argues with him. Well, of course, Richard Dawkins has now seen this. I mean, Dawkins has been on the Rogan show and everything. He posted like, it's very dumb that Tucker Carlson said this. And then I was reading through the comments of Dawkins's post, and we've talked about the black pill on this show before, where you lose all hope in humanity and everything becomes meaningless. Well, I was reading through the comments and I had that feeling because not everyone, a lot of the comments were, and I responded to one that was like this, was, well, yeah, Tucker may be off on this one point, but really it's the fault of the scientists who have been misleading people for years. And it's like, no, that's not true. That's simply a lie.
Wait, did Dawkins say that?
No, the commenters under Dawkins' post were saying that.
Yeah. I saw that.
I will say.
No, Dawkins said it's stupid that Tucker Carlson said this regarding the Joe Rogan thing. And a lot of the comments under Dawkins's post were, yeah, it's dumb he said that evolution is wrong, but in fairness, scientists lie all the time, so can you really blame him for being skeptical? And it's like, that's so many layers of stupid right
That's
there.
it's alarming that many follow. I think maybe most are followers of Dawkins who say that to him.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because Dawkins
Yeah.
has garnered a crowd of like anti-trans people, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
there's a
That
big
explains it. Yep.
The Venn diagram of like of creationists, and anti-trans people. That's it's not quite a circle, but it's pretty darn close. And so like yeah. So anyway,
He has like he has by either by accident or design like established a siphon from the right wing politics, and then people are spilling over to his
mhm,
Twitter following, basically.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
and I mean, not the first time that's happened, but at any rate, so in any case, so I responded to one of the guys or I didn't really respond to him. I quote tweeted him, and I was like, "This is an idiotic take. Scientists are not lying to people. It's literally just the conspiracy theorists who are lying to people." Because of course, when they say scientists are lying, what this guy was referring to, and what other people jumped on my response were saying was like, "Oh, the scientists said that the COVID vaccine was safe and that it was effective, and that turned out to be a lie." No, that's not true. Actually, both the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines had over 90% effectiveness on the initial stages of COVID. They are still safe. They're less effective, of course, because the virus has evolved, but they are still safe. The chance of you getting myocarditis or some other cardiovascular issue from COVID is far, far, far higher than you getting
Mhm.
it from a vaccine. Like it's no shot whatsoever. Oh, hey, Zach is here. Hello. Oh, and Smitty. I don't know if I said hello to Smitty earlier. Welcome, guys. So anyway, so I got into an argument with some idiot anti-vaxxers online. I did that for several hours. Another guy was like, scientists said in the 70s that the Earth was cooling, which I have looked into this claim. The only thing I can find are like a handful of people of like climatologists or ecologists. I can only find a handful of them who were engaged in that. It's mostly journalists who spread that around because going back to you can find papers from literally the early 1900s that were like by what is it, Savante Arrhenius, right? Like the chemist who said the Earth is warmer than it should be. That was around like the turn of the 1900s when he said that. And you had climatologists working for Exxon in the 60s and 70s who were the ones who realized initially that the Earth was warming. It was the fossil fuel industry that funded climatologists to figure out how the burning of fossil fuels was affecting the atmosphere, and then that was first brought to their attention in 1977, and then 11 years later, 1988, the first like group of climatologists approached Congress to tell them that global warming was happening and fossil fuel industries were responsible. So yeah, it's so bad. Like I don't know. I'm very doomer about. I try not to be. I try to be positive, right? I mean, like we argue with people all the time on this channel. We watch
Mhm.
these videos because maybe someone will come across our videos and realize, hey, what they're saying is right. What this guy's saying is wrong. And then they'll change their mind in theory. But like I had a conversation with some people in my real life, not in the Twitterverse, because let's be real, Twitter's not real life, right? Twitter's
No.
not a substitute for reality. I argue, with people all the time on Twitter. I really don't argue with people in real life. Like that really doesn't happen all that often. So Twitter's not real. Um,
It reminds me of a recent like video that John Stewart did. Like he
mhm.
was he like I think he basically I don't remember the title, but it's also about the whole cancel culture stuff. And he also points
Mm.
out that there is actually in fact a lot of cancel culture going on the Trump side, because whenever
Well,
there's
sure.
a Republican politician criticizing Trump, they are done basically. Yeah,
Oh,
just that. But
absolutely. Like not
yeah,
even close. Yeah, no,
but
it's
but,
yeah.
but one thing John Stewart also mentions is that on social media, it thrives on outrage, and that's all it is. It's just outrage, constant outrage on social media, and it's not real life. And luckily, it's not real life. Thank.
Yeah, I
for that.
agree. Like I don't really argue with people in real life. I don't want to. I don't have any interest in arguing with people in my real life because I have my time is I really don't have enough time for that. I really shouldn't be arguing with people on Twitter either. But which is why for creationist, my policy is is like, if you disagree with me, come on the channel. Otherwise, I'm not arguing with you. This guy on the other hand was just being really annoying. So I dumped several papers on him. And of course it didn't help. So whatever. But anyway, I got into an argument with some people in real life who are relatively close to me. And they're anti-vax, not just for the COVID vaccine. They're anti-vax for all vaccinations. And despite my best efforts, didn't help at all, right? Despite the fact that these people who are very passionate about what they believe with regard to vaccines don't know anything about vaccines. They don't know about how vaccination works. They don't know what the procedure is, the protocols for developing vaccines. If you gave them literally any question at all about vaccines, they wouldn't be able to answer it. And I know because I did. I straight up asked them, like, direct quote, I said, do you know what in the mRNA vaccine triggers your immune response? And the answer is the mRNA. The mRNA triggers your immune response. Like, and I just, it's like, I don't know what to do about that. Anyway, so there's nothing I can really do about it.
It may not be like there's always a chance that they may come around later. Like at least you have made contact like that. It usually does not work the first time. Like it's very rare to convince people right on the spot. Like maybe they will hear, like they will remember you talking to them, and they will later change their mind on their own. Basically, that can happen that way, of course.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So like yes, these people do have children, and the funny thing about it is, the funny thing about the anti-vax position that they hold is they actually got their two kids vaccinated. Their children are vaccinated against, or not COVID, but they got all their normal childhood vaccines. They have been radicalized against vaccinations in recent years, and that just hurts my heart more than anything.
Yeah.
Because, like, you know, if you don't want to get the COVID vaccine and you're an adult, I don't care. Like, I genuinely don't care. Whatever. You do your own life. Forget all the people who end up in the hospital and then are like crying to the doctor because they couldn't get the vaccine sooner. Like, whatever. But like, now they are against all childhood like vaccines at all. And I afterwards, like this past few days, I've been talking to people, older people, and who like were around before the polio vaccine, right? That was what, 55, wasn't it? Or who were born around that time and have friends or family members or whatever who, you know, were who had to deal with polio, who were either paralyzed because of polio or people who died from it.
Yeah, we had a close friend of the family who was in a wheelchair because of polio. So yeah, when I grew up, there were several people who were suffering from more or less effects from polio. So yeah,
yeah, it is truly a terrible situation, and I feel like I threw every argument I could like possibly think of at them regarding like, yeah, because of course, as Smitty points out, mercury, they did in fact say, you know, mercury causes autism, and I said, first of all, no. Well, the mercury that was in thimerosal, because they didn't know it was thimerosal, they just said mercury in vaccines. I had to explain it was a preservative that is no longer in vaccines anymore, and even when it was, it didn't cause autism. We know this for a fact. There are lots of papers on it. You can go look them up. And I tried explaining this to them, and they said, "Well, it's mercury. Don't they tell you that there's mercury in fish?" And I say, "That is methyl mercury. We're talking about ethyl mercury. That's in thimerosal, which is not correlated with autism." And they're like, "Oh, but that's just bogus." It's or tried to explain to them that the guy, that Andrew Wakefield, the guy who claimed that vaccines cause autism, actually didn't claim it for all vaccines. He only claimed it for the measles vaccine because he wanted to sell his own measles vaccine that was made out of like his friend's blood. Like, there's just so much stupid stuff that they fall for, that people who
Just,
like I have to care about, that they fall for, and it makes you feel really bad because we're at the point, really, I feel like, where we're not just arguing about facts. We are living in different realities, and
Mhm.
the magic of the internet, as great as it is, allows us to live in different realities. You
Yes.
can, if you watch Fox News or OAN or one of these conservative networks, and all you take in is that, or or Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or whatever, and you never leave that bubble. You are able to just live in a world completely detached from reality. It's
Yeah.
You can do that. It
Yeah.
is completely possible, and that hurts my heart.
But just to check, so mercury doesn't cause autism?
So the mercury that was in thimerosal was ethyl mercury.
Technically
I'm
speaking,
I'm
it breaks down
I,
into ethyl.
Oh, sorry, it breaks down
I,
into ethyl
Yeah,
mercury, but the one
yeah.
that
I
the one that is associated with harm, like that people can get if they eat, that can bioaccumulate if people eat too much fish, that breaks down to methyl mercury, which is
Yes,
harmful.
yeah,
methyl.
but
Yeah,
see
with
that
an M.
that
Yeah.
doesn't answer my question. So can I keep the cougar or do I need to sell it?
Huh?
Mercury Cougar. My car is a Mercury Cougar.
Haha.
You're so funny,
Wow.
Peter. Why are you here when
And
you should be doing stand up?
yeah, I mean, and also Icarus. Icarus said, "What about the aluminum in the mRNA vaccine? It's spelled aluminium." Icarus, you're Dutch. Behave. Aluminium, not
Oh,
aluminum.
Minamata disease. Okay, so that's PZ says is
But
Minamata disease.
the Americans say aluminum. Yeah.
Yeah.
Aluminium, yeah. Or yeah. Anyway,
And,
so I wanted, so originally they also, and I do want to say that because this is a family who's very religious, and I have no problem with people being religious. I feel like I've said that a million times on this channel. I don't care if people are religious. I have no problem with that. If you in my chat are religious, cool, great. I have no problem with that. It bothers me not at all. I have no issue with it. What I do have an issue with is wielding religion as a cudgel against medical science,
Yes.
especially since, and I'm not even talking about Jehovah's Witnesses or people like that. I'm not. I mean, I think that's the, like, you can't receive blood transfusions is dumb, but you win the Darwin Award, so whatever. No, what I mean is, like, people of, like, Protestants and Catholics. There's nothing in either of those that says you can't receive, like, medical treatment. There's none. There's nothing.
No.
And so, but what's interesting is it was revealed to me that there was a person, and Peter, I think you're going to love this in particular, that there was this person who's claimed to be like a new saint, who lives in I think it's Trevano, Italy. I think Trevano. Is that how you? No, it wasn't Trevino. Oh, I'm gonna have to look her up again. Anyway, so this woman.
She claims to be a new saint.
Well, so she is claiming that miraculous things are happening to her. Like, she's seeing visions of Mary. She has stigmata on her hands. And so here's the funny thing about that. So she and her husband ran a like a pottery company that, and get this, they got they like spent time in jail for fraud, for committing like financial fraud using this company, which I'm sure all saints do that. It can't just be them. Normal stuff.
Why is this a recurring thing with people who get some kind of following as a religious apologist or someone who a religious influencer. They all get into money problems.
Let me
Weird.
see. What was her name? I gotta find her name because, gosh, what was her name? I have to find this. Here it is. Okay. If you go to Crux, which is a Catholic news organization, you can read all about her. They wrote this article. Her name, sorry, Trevignano. I have no idea how to pronounce that. Romano, Italy. Sorry, Gisela Cardia is her name. So this woman, who was found a nuisance or a nuisance. Yeah, exactly. Peter, it really does. It really makes me always think of that phrase. What is it like? It's something to the effect of like a saint is like not revered in their home or something like that, or a what is the term? What is the phrase? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Someone who's like a prophet is not. They're not respecting their own
It's
land.
one of the things that Jesus is famous for. That he wasn't as revered in his own hometown because
Here it is.
Yeah.
A prophet is not without honor except in his hometown. Now, of course, if you ask an apologist what that means, they will tell you it is because the people who are closest don't understand the importance of what you're doing. It has to be foreign to them. I think it's because
they're onto your bullshit.
The reason Peter's about to right, exactly. They recognize that you're full of crap.
It's
exactly.
the same is happening with RFK Jr. also.
Yeah, he's full of crap. That's why he sounds funny. So anyway, so this woman, Gisela Cardia, so she claims to have had a number of visions from Mary. She claims that so she was visited, that Mary told her in 2019, sorry, was it 2019, I think? In 2019 not to take the vaccine. She actually originally said that a new bacteria would emerge from China. Well, sorry, COVID's a virus, not a bacterium. So I guess Mary and I guess God by extension got that wrong, but whatever.
they weren't up to date.
They should have taken like freshman biology, I guess, before
handing
out messages to the world.
Jackson, the biblical name for a virus is bacteria.
Oh, is that what it is?
That's how it works.
My mistake. I mean, you're probably right. So anyway, so she claims. Oh, she also claimed that her statue of Mary was like bleeding from the eyes, a reference to like the tears and blood saying.
I just one question. So she claims that Mary warned her in 2019 that there was
not to take the vaccine.
Not to take the vaccine, but she didn't tell anyone until when exactly?
Like this year.
Yes.
This article is from. Or sorry, no. I'm sorry. She didn't tell anyone until after the pandemic had already started.
Because
this article was in 2020.
Yeah, because you have to make up your bullshit once you know what actually happens, and then retrofit it to whatever happened to you.
And so she claims that she has a website where she like writes down all these things, all these visions she gets. And according to I don't remember this article or another one. So yes, Mary spoke in September about an unknown bacteria, or as Cardia now says, a virus that would arrive from China. So I guess Mary had to get up on the material. Anyway, so continuing onward. So basically, she claims that a bunch of miracles are happening to her, like the Mary statue bleeding from the eyes. She claims to have stigmata. She claims that Mary told her about the COVID and vaccine and everything before it happened. Well, wouldn't you know it? There was an investigation by the bishop who is local to this woman to see if she is actually telling the truth or whatever. And lo and behold, they can't verify anything she said. They can't verify the stigmata.
How am I not surprised?
How am I? And it's not like, let's be real here. It's not like, a bunch of atheists went over there and were like, tipping their fedora at her. No, it was the Catholic Church who went there. The people who would best be able to talk to her.
One of the things I'm always curious about when she said she had stigmata, would that mean she had those in the palm of her hand? Because if that's the case, you know it's going to be fake because that's not where that nail went, right? We all know this.
Oh, right. It went down like here, wasn't it?
Yes.
Because otherwise it would have just ripped through the hand.
Yes. So probably this woman is pushing the red crayon back into the box with the palm of her hand, and oh, that's how that happened.
The red crayon. Yeah. So it's So anyway, so I read a bunch about this lady. No one can verify her story. The bishop had like a whole report commissioned on her, and they can't verify anything she said. And so like I had never heard about this. Of all the silly things I'd heard about the vaccine, right? Like Nestle, you remember when we did our video on we did a video on COVID early on in the pandemic where
Oh
people
yeah.
were claiming like promoters from vegetables were causing viruses to appear and all
Oh
sorts of stuff.
yeah.
And like I've heard some we've all heard some very silly claims, right? I mean to this day, there's no
I
good
still like
evidence.
I still like the one where people in China are eating bats because obviously
Yeah.
Ozzy Osbourne is famously where COVID originated. He ate bats. He ate a bat on stage. I mean, this was a long time ago. So
That is pretty crazy. Maybe he was patient zero and it took this long for it to
yeah,
get out. Who knows? So we've all heard some silly stuff. One of the most famous ones, which I mean isn't silly per se, but it's a persistent thing that we hear, is that like the virus was either manufactured or was tested on in the Wuhan Institute and then was then released either intentionally or by accident. There are different versions of that claim. To date, there's really no good evidence for that. There was a report put out by the Director of National Intelligence. It was last year. Was it last year, year before last? In which she said that we actually know what viruses the Wuhan Institute was working on at the time of the COVID outbreak. You can look at their protocols for like washing their hands and how to deal with like the different clean rooms and everything. Nothing about their protocol changed like leading up to the pandemic, suggesting that it was just business as usual, right?
Mhm.
So there's no evidence from there. All the arguments about like the spike protein must have come from or must have been engineered. There's no really good evidence for that. There's no good evidence that I mean we have viruses that it's pretty closely related to. It doesn't seem to have jumped from pangolins. The Sarbeca viruses are not ancestral to COVID, but they are related, and they are found in the wild. So like there really aren't any good reasons to believe that. And if you poll, there was a survey done of virologists and epidemiologists, and the large majority of them are of the opinion that the virus originated naturally. Now there are a few who think it originated from the Wuhan lab, and generally the scientists tend to agree that there needs to be more data into the origin of COVID. And you know what? I agree. There needs to be more research into that because why not, right? So like
Infidel posted that's where the O in COVID comes from. Actually, COVID just stands for Crazy Aussie Virus Department. That's what COVID means.
Oh, I gotcha. That makes sense, actually.
Or it could be Virus Investigation Department. I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, it's. I think that's what it is.
So like, as of present, as of right now, this could change in the future, but as of right now, there's really no good evidence that COVID originated in a lab. Okay, best evidence right now. That could change. I don't think it will.
The only plausible way I could view the lab leak scenario is the scientist taking a wild virus from like a cave somewhere, taking it into the lab, and then it leaked out. Yeah. I don't see any way that it could be engineered in the deliberate. Oh,
someone calling you, Nestle?
Me.
Oh, is that? Oh, that was you, Peter. Okay, sorry. Anyway, keep going, Nestle.
Oh, am I still on?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, I thought it was my microphone acting up again.
I also thought it was, but no, it was Peter.
All right. But yeah, I don't see any way how this virus could be engineered, because engineering leaves marks in the genome, and we have the
Hmm.
genome of the virus. So, and
Yes.
I've seen like especially one particular preprint paper who argues were found like marks of engineering in the genome, but that is completely bunk if you go through the details of that.
Hmm. Right, and I'm sure that once it gets reviewed or whatever, or I mean, m- it'll get reviewed, and either it will go into a journal or it'll join the trash pile. Like that's all I can say about that. I mean, like at the end of the day, for the purposes of my life, it really doesn't matter whether COVID was engineered in a lab or it originated naturally. It doesn't affect me either way, right? It doesn't. So if it's true, okay. If it's not true, okay. Like I just, that's all there is to it. I don't care. I don't get any
But
money, if
but there's also some recent news that came out from Reuters, I believe,
Okay.
about how the Pentagon spread
Yes.
vaccine misinformation, also anti-China, like, oh, the China is the virus rhetoric,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the Philippines, where
Cool.
we
Love
have
that.
some of the lowest vaccination rates, probably because of that propaganda from by the Pentagon. It's really appalling that they did that. And
Yeah.
the article mentions that, like, by law, the U.S. is not allowed to do propaganda within the United States. So technically speaking, they are apparently they are allowed to do it in the Philippines. But my point is that, like, misinformation like that just doesn't stay within the Philippines, especially not in the age
Hmm.
of the internet. It won't
Correct.
stay there.
Correct.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
it's pretty bad, and yeah, it's pretty bad. It's bad when you have like random crazy people posting silly stuff on the internet. It's even worse when you have the one of the most powerful entities in the world spreading misinformation on the internet. That's pretty bad.
You,
I
you
do
know,
want to point
you
out,
know,
however.
you know what's also bad?
Hmm.
If you call people when they're on a live show in the middle of the live show. So I've done that to Onra 3 times so far, and
Hmm.
as of now, if anyone wants to keep score, it's 3-1. He just called me, so I'm going to tease him with this.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Um, Giant
Also,
Midget points out, I just happened to be following a virology course online, and they talked about why we were so quick to make vaccines was partially due to all the work that went into SARS before it.
yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Hmm.
Actually, I was also reading about the injecting mRNA into hosts. That actually goes back to the 1990s, early 90s.
Right.
So that sort of testing was done on mice relating to diabetes. Yeah, back in the 90s. And now recently there was an article that came out on there's an mRNA vaccine. It's not, it doesn't work quite the same way as like a COVID vaccine does, because it has to be specifically tailored to a person rather than like just a broad sort of thing. But an mRNA vaccine for pancreatic cancer is in trials right now, and it has shown some very promising like early results. So not just, I think it's in phase 2 is what it said. So that's super cool. There is a lot, like a lot of different diseases that people are working on where they are developing mRNA vaccines for them. And that led me also to this paper where, or titled, Selection for High Levels of Resistance to Double-Stranded RNA in Colorado Potato Beetle Using Non-Transgenic Foliar Delivery. So RNA is being used in insecticides. So the people
Yes.
who are afraid of RNA are going to be in a really bad spot when a lot of technology in the next several years comes to be dependent on RNA. So I don't know. Insecticidal double-stranded RNAs silence expression of vital genes by activating the RNA interference mechanism in insect cells. So, like, RNA technology is not going away, and as Giant Midget pointed out, this technology has been worked on for quite a while. It's only going to get better, and it's going to stick around. Like unless something happens where suddenly something way better comes out, this technology is going to stick around. So, all right. Anyway, okay. All right.
It's also ironic. Like I know, like last time, like 2 weeks ago, we did a conspiracy theory show,
Yes.
and now recently we have a new actual conspiracy being brought to light. Yeah, but that's my
I mean,
final.
as we
note.
pointed out in that show, though, conspiracies do happen sometimes.
Yes.
You know, certain ones do. So,
Mhm.
okay, all right. Well, we have talked way long enough on this. So, let's get on over to Kurt. How much longer do we have on Kurt Wise?
I think we're only a few minutes left, but in the last video.
And Nestle, wasn't there something?
Yeah. I was just about to mention. We also have the
Okay.
images that we want to show to you.
All right. Lay it on me.
Prepare yourself.
All right, I'm prepared. Oh my gosh.
So I think you already even people in the audience, you may have seen the thumbnail for this video.
That's very good, Nestle.
I made that.
This
Like,
was the beta
like,
thumbnail. This is for
Yeah, that was the beta that thumbnail. Yeah.
This is very. You guys are getting a little too good at this. I don't know.
I remember we were talking about in one freeze frame of Kurt Wise, he had his hands.
Right, we
in a
joked
particular
about that.
manner.
It's like Neo from the Matrix. Yeah.
Yeah. He
Or
was
Morpheus from the
holding two pills, one red pill and one blue pill.
Yeah, he's
in
like
there.
Morpheus. Yeah,
Yes.
That's pretty darn funny. Okay.
It's not just a boulder; it's a rock. Yes, that's
Right,
the reference.
and as we found out, as Nestle pointed out at the very end of the show, he was not actually looking at boulders. So if you guys will recall, Kurt Wise was claiming that he and I think it was Andrew Snelling were at some geological site and they were finding the remains of giant rocks within other rocks, and they were like, "There's no way this could have happened by natural means. This must have been, a global flood." And we were trying to look this claim up because I had never heard this claim before, and Nestle found it. He wasn't actually looking at these boulders that were like in these rocks. It turns out he had misidentified a certain type of rock as though it were a drop stone or whatever, an erratic. So I don't know if we should really be listening to this guy.
So boulders in rocks, like a kind of prehistoric Russian Matryoshka doll thing.
Right. Well, because you can have that. Do it.
No, just the image. You have a boulder in a rock, in a boulder in a rock in a boulder.
Well, right, because you can have like glacial deposits, and you can find the remains of glacial deposits in in strata, and they will have stones that have been transported, and you can tell that these stones have been transported because the material within them is different from.
There's a leg sticking up right here. That's my life.
Different from the surrounding rock material, the rock matrix, and so that's how you can tell that like you're dealing with a rock from somewhere else. But that is not what Kurt Wise was dealing with. I mean, of course, we also called him out at the beginning on. He claimed that there was only like one type of rock that Ediacaran fossils come from, or sorry, I think it was specifically like late Ediacaran, which is still wrong, but whatever. So we've called him out. His essentially his whole thesis on these are just
different environments.
Right, these are different environments.
Deposit types. Yeah.
Right, and also as was pointed out, I think also by Nestle, was if we're going to claim that like all the deposits in, I think it was the Timoshan, I don't quite remember, if it was all the Timoshan deposits were like carbonates, does that mean that all carbonates should have Cambrian fossils in them? Are they all the same environment? Isn't that like the converse of that, right? Because he's claiming.
I'm not sure.
Well, I don't know how else that would work, right? If you're going to claim that carbonates are like, and I know that applies to a lot of different rocks, but just bear with me as a biology person here, not a geology person. If you've got like a carbonate rock, and he's saying that like Tomotian fossils are only found in these carbonate rocks, so this is one type of environment, one type of depositional environment. So shouldn't we expect that for all carbonate rocks? Or like, are they also deposited under the same type of depositional environment? Like, I don't know. That argument seems very weird to me. If we have any geology people in the live chat who want to, correct me on that, happy to be corrected. I don't know. So, Smitty's right. We call them boulders. Do you ever see them bold? What about phosphatized fossils?
Every painting needs a painter. Every rock needs a boulder. Builder. Bolt. Create. I don't know.
Every rock needs a rocker.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about the phosphatized fossils?
And some creationists are off of it. The rocker, I mean.
True, I agree. Well, I think he was just referring to the late Ediacaran fossils, but even still, that wasn't true. We looked up like several different, we found several different like types of rocks that are in the deposit, the Ediacaran deposits. Also, the phosphatized embryo stuff, or alleged phosphatized embryo stuff, came up recently because Gunther Beckley published another article at Evolution News in which he argued that, or he pointed out that one of the supposed embryos is non-metazoan. I don't remember what they said it was. They said it's probably non-metazoan, so it's not an animal. And he said, aha, this proves there are no animals in the Ediacaran, which is very funny to me because he himself has acknowledged in multiple articles that there are animals in the Ediacaran. So who needs consistency, right? Why would you need consistency when you can just not be consistent? I don't know. Anyway. Okay. All right, with that preamble, let's get into it.
Okay.
Where the position here we have a sequence of rocks leading up to the boundary. So these are pre-flood rocks. We have a whole bunch of pre-flood rocks, and for our purposes here, just to introduce the fact that there is intruded into them a very thick diabase. It's a very thick molten unit that was stuck into the middle of these sediments. And so if we look at what's underneath the stromatolites, is we have a lot of sediments formed by water, which are intruded by a big diabase sill. In fact, there's more than one sill. And so if we look at the history of this, we have the deposition of thousands of feet of sediment, which we suspect is due to the raising of continents and the running off of sediment from those continents. So we have a very big, package of sediment. Then we have the intrusion of an igneous unit in the midst of those sediments, and then it's later that we have.
Okay, so I'm not entirely sure how he explains an igneous intrusion in the middle of this sediment that was supposedly, like, if this sediment was moved by the flood, how is there an igneous intrusion in it? How did that happen? That must have happened afterwards, right? I mean, that's like geology 101. So how did that happen? So you had this lay down, then afterwards this igneous intrusion occurred. But like, doesn't matter to his argument, I guess.
It's how God created it, Jackson. There.
Must be.
Have the formation of, in that particular area known as the Beck Spring Formation. There's a number of evidences that indicate that it is in fact formed by hot water, probably from this diabase cooling. It's getting off its heat. The heat is being carried by water, and we're producing a limestone by hydrothermal activity. And this is the context upon which the stromatolites are observed. So, and here's some of the evidences for the hydrothermal activity, and I'm going to skip through that.
Luggages.
In the Grand Canyon, we also have evidence of intrusion into sediments that we think were formed in day 3 of the Creation Week by the raising
just one
of the
evidence
continents.
in the Grand Canyon?
Radiometrically,
Not more than one?
they are identical in age to that which is intruded into the Mojave Desert. That sill in the Mojave Desert is identical in age to these intrusions here. And chemically, it is identical. In fact, it's identical to intrusions that are found in the mid-continent and across an enormous area. It appears that there was, after the day 3 regression, there was an intrusion across the North American Laurentian area of this huge body of hot molten rock that is then cooling by water.
Wait a second. Remember. Wait, no, he said this is on day 3, so this is during the Creation Week. Wait, then where are the stromatolite reefs coming from?
They all grew within a few hours.
Oh, is that what happened? Like, wait a second. Hold on.
Super cyanobacteria. Yes.
They're growing on the molten rock, I presume.
To recap, so God created the layers that were laid down in the flood on day 3 in the Creation Week. Just trying to keep my
I think that's
notes.
what he's arguing. Yeah, these layers were laid down and then they were heaved by the flood.
Mm-hmm.
And the organisms were arranged by ecology during the flood.
Magic.
That's how floods work, Peter. Don't you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you know water only arranges things by species, not by like size or surface area or things like that. So
except when it's different species of the same thing, then it will stack those on top of each other, and so that we can call them index fossils.
I mean, Peter, you see the flood, like Noah had his sons bury like this species of ammonite at this layer, then another one at the next layer, then another one at the next layer. And the reason he did that was so that like they wouldn't pile up in just one layer. They had to spread them out,
I still think they evolved because they saw the flood coming, right? So they saw one layer laid down, so they evolved so they could outswim God, and then they got caught up because God saw them outswim, and then they had to evolve again to outswim God again, and this was kind of a contest. And this is how it turned out in all these layers. So, and it's not it's not evolution. Yeah, it's not evolution, it's adaptation. They were adapting to the speed of God.
An adaptational arm race. Okay. That's too good. I like that.
Coming up through it, picking up its heat, and devolving onto the surface, taking this hot material and bringing it up to the surface, creating hot springs, very hot springs at the surface. It's in that context that we find the stromatolitic reefs of the Grand Canyon. So it's my hypothesis that actually these stromatolitic reefs are formed in the hot water generated by this intrusion, and that the reason that you don't have anything.
Wait a minute. Wait. Hold up. His argument, his proposal, is that the lava was coming out of the earth and the stromatolite reefs formed around these geothermal vents. That's his proposal.
Like hot water is very good for the cyanobacteria to grow so rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, we look at all the places on Earth where you have stromatolites in the deep ocean with cyanobacteria. That happens all over the place. Oh, Okay. I mean, in fairness, you can have cyanobacteria and algae at like thermal vents, like you do at like Yellowstone, for instance.
Yeah.
But he's talking about these are happening like underwater, right? I don't
I don't know. I don't know.
like
I don't
deep
know where
underwater
this
or
is on the surface or not. Like, but in either case, like the main point is that like stromatolites in particular, they grow very slowly, like
right.
very slowly.
Well, okay, but his contention has been like that these are arranged by ecology, right? So like you're getting more near shore essentially. Wouldn't that have to be the case?
I Again, I'm not. I'm like it was the case previously, but now I'm not so sure what he is trying to convey here.
Oh, also, my unfinished journey for $6.66 says, "Hail Nero, hail Nestle, hail Peter, and hail science." True. God has OCD. God, nature's deadliest predator. Smitty.
So you're Nero.
I guess I'm Nero. You know, it is what it is.
As long as you don't start playing the violin during the show, I'm fine with that.
Mm-mm-mm. All right, we keep going.
But bacteria in these rocks is because nothing else can live in these rocks. And it's specially designed, these bacteria are specially designed for
Wait a
that
second.
hydrothermal situation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right, pause for a moment. Okay. So, I don't know if anyone's done any research. You guys have ever read about like the animals that live at hydrothermal vents? There are a bunch of them. There are tube worms, and there are mussels and clams, and there are snails, and there are what do you call them, ratfish or whatever. Um, there are lots of animals that live around hydrothermal vents. The idea that like only the bacteria could live around hydrothermal vents, that's just simply false. That's just observationally false. Unless God hadn't created the animals yet, he only created bacteria, I guess. I don't know. Kind of bananas, honestly. Anything you guys want to add on that?
Like if I'm not mistaken, the like stromatolites, they grow basically in lagoons,
Yeah,
right?
in shallow waters, yes.
Yeah.
Like very calm,
They don't
shallow
grow like
water.
yeah, like as you mentioned before, you do have cyanobacteria in like the very hot pools in Yellowstone, for example, but they don't grow stromatolites.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep, they don't grow stromatolites.
Stromatolites are only found in lagoons. Yeah.
Yeah, so and we don't see them as far as I'm aware. I have never read about stromatolites being found at geothermal vents, like in the deep ocean. I've never seen that. So unless he's got evidence to the contrary, and I don't think he does, I call that bogus.
I would guess he is saying that they are he's referring to hydrothermal vents at the surface, but even then it's to me it strikes me as completely bogus. Yeah.
Yeah, it's still bogus. He looks like right now, like he's trying to sell you something. He's like, please, sir, please buy my items so I can feed my family. I don't know. This makes me think. Oh, also my unfinished journey for $2. Hail Jackson. Yes, Hail Jackson. All right. We can keep going.
And it would probably decompose. It's probably why we don't even find the fossils of the microorganisms in the stromatolites. It would decompose organic matter, and probably even if there were spores and that sort of thing that floated into this, that's all decomposed by the hydrothermal situation.
Okay.
And so we reconstruct the edge of the continent just before
Okay, that's
the
what I was
flood
saying.
as having a stromatolitic reef
Yes.
along the, in this case, western margin of Laurentia, with the material underneath it is intruded by a very thick, hot magma that is producing heat at the surface, producing hot springs along here. So the only thing that can live here are the bacteria generating
pause again.
these
Pause again. Again, remember, there are animals that live at hydrothermal vents. That's the idea that like you would not find any animals there is just bogus. That's just straight up a lie. And also this idea that, like, and again, as Nestling said, stromatolites require very specific areas that they can form, very specific conditions. They're not just going to pop up at any hydrothermal vent. I'm not aware of them popping up near any hydrothermal vents. I'm curious, actually. Let's find out. Let's see. Hydrothermal. I could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. So let's take a look. Hydrothermal vent. Stromatolite. I am not seeing. Nope. Look here. Well, this is just an article. It just says stromatolites form in sunlit surface areas or surface waters of the sea. Hydrothermal vents. Yeah, I don't see anything that says anything about stromatolites near hydrothermal reefs. I don't see anything related to that. Solution, true or false? There's no way that's true. Okay. Anyway, all right. So I don't see anything related to it. So all right, we can keep going.
These reefs. That in turn produces a lagoon in between the westernmost portion of the continent and the terrestrial portion of the continent. And in that lagoon, we can have microorganisms living there. I would suggest your Ediacaran fauna are living in sands that are at one particular location, probably deep because of their morphology. Tomotian fauna living in a carbonate environment, and the Atbanian fauna living in muds that are closer to the land. And probably more than anything, it's the temperature of the water that is determining what's living where in this particular sequence. Then, when the flood comes along, then that big earthquake at the beginning of the flood.
Here, pause for a moment. I found an article. This is from 2019. So it says some guy named Raphael. I don't think that's the same. No, okay. All right. This guy claims to have says he found interpreted the strongly pyritized stromatolites in hydrothermal sedimentary strata from the 3.48 billion year old Dresser Formation in Australia as biological based on their morphology and texture, micromineralogy, chemistry, and the presence of coherent strands and filaments composed of thermally mature organic matter, which were interpreted as the degraded remains of microbial communities. So this guy found some stromatolites in hydrothermal sedimentary strata. I'll link that paper here. Boop. There you go. Live chat. And then this. Okay. All right, we can keep going.
Collapse the margin of the continent. So I haven't got there yet. For 1,600 years, we're building up stromatolites and critters are living happily and so on and so forth. And then at the beginning of the flood, there's a collapse of the continental margin around the world.
What did he say? For how long did the cyanobacteria grow?
1,600 years.
1,600 years. So he's not saying that it all happened during the flood or something, or during creation.
The stromatolites are pre-flood, is what he's saying. He's saying they're from the creation.
All right.
You got to keep up with the lore, Nestling.
Big, huge pieces of the stromatolitic reef of all sorts of things collapse into deep water, creating avalanche deposits into the deep water. That opens up or breaches the reef for the deposition of sequentially the Ediacaran fauna, the
Oh, how
Timoshan fauna,
convenient.
and the Atbanian fauna as it gets carried in there
Pause,
by the
please.
undertow.
Pause. And remember, none of these organisms ever overlap in time with each other in the fossil record, which is so weird. It's so weird that you never ever find flounders with trilobites, or whales with mosasaurs, or Dickinsonia with trilobites either. Like, it's so convenient. It's just so crazy that these things just never overlapped in strata with each other. They just completely missed. Coincidence, I guess. Ships in the night, wild stuff.
That Steve was talking about. So that wasn't. I need to work on that PowerPoint. It's like I'm always short on the PowerPoint. But anyway, that's the.
I'd get a remote first. I mean, Kent Hovind had those in 2005. What the hell are you doing? Who's funding you?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess that one's it. Okay. All right. Well, that was.
No, that wasn't it. I paused it. Sorry.
That's not it.
What we've got here is our inference this week on at least one pre-flood ecosystem. Studying the rocks, there's again a traditional interpretation of the rocks. There is a traditional, conventional explanation for these rocks, that there's the evolution of communities through time, that there's glacial activity going on to produce the diamictites. But you look more closely, something's not quite right with that interpretation. You don't actually have the time sequence for the faunas. They're all living simultaneously at the same time, not evolutionary.
Okay, also
not
pause.
An evolutionary project.
Pause. Remember, his argument for that they're living at the same time, is that they weren't separated by as much time as was previously thought. So when he was a grad student in like the 80s or the 90s, whatever. It could have been 80s or 90s. Anyway, when he was a grad student, he's saying that the time kept shrinking that between like when, say, the Ediacaran fauna lived and the Timoshan fauna and the Atbanian fauna. It was thought that 100 million years separated these, and it kept shrinking. Well, that was 30 or so years ago, and they're still separated by millions of years. Like the Ediacaran ends 541 million years ago, and then the Cambrian starts, and then these periods are separated by millions of years. The amoeba fossils that he was showing off are from 750 million years ago. So this idea that they were all living at the same time is totally bogus. He had absolutely no evidence for it. He based it on a single conversation that he had with some other grad students 30 or so years ago. So that's his argument for that, just by the way. Okay, anyway.
Progression at all. The diamictites are not actually generated by glaciers. You have to invoke a different mechanism, and as soon as you get a reasonable mechanism for them, you've got a catastrophic situation, which is consistent with the catastrophe we hypothesized for the flood itself. So
that is
proposed that there is or was a pre-flood ecosystem, hydrothermal reefs made by bacteria in the pre-flood world that was never generated after the flood, because we don't have those kind of conditions anywhere in the world after the flood, and that the collapse of that system explains the order of.
I'm just curious, because I'm pretty sure it says in the Bible that you can't add to God's word. Where are these people getting their data from? The pre-flood world and the post-flood world? Because they're not getting it from the Bible, because I looked. It's not there.
Peter,
it doesn't say
they are making it up.
It doesn't say anything about continents. There's not even one continent is mentioned in the Bible, so.
Well, I mean, they knew about Europe and Asia and Africa. Like they knew about
Yeah,
those.
but they didn't know that those were continents. That's what I'm
Well,
trying
sure.
to
I mean,
say.
the concept of a continent probably didn't exist yet. So
No.
yeah. Also, I guess I need to refresh because my camera's
Yeah,
frozen.
you are frozen. So, Neslick, juggle until Jackson gets back because we need someone to juggle. Oh, that was
All right, like
that was
Got it.
that was fast.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah, no, you can't juggle because Jackson's already back.
I'm already back. Sorry, Nestle.
all right.
I'm putting Nestle on the spot, saying he had to juggle because you were gone.
So basically, his whole argument is just it is full of holes. There's no evidence that these deposits are identical in time. There's no evidence that like you have to invoke a non-normal natural mechanisms for the movement of the sediments he was talking about because he misidentified the rocks.
His argument
he was wrong about.
His argument's full of holes. It's kind of a holy argument.
Exactly, it's a Swiss cheese argument.
Yes.
He was wrong about like the depositional environments for the different strata. Like it's wrong top to bottom, just start to finish. So of course the conclusions he's going to draw are also going to be totally wrong. So,
in all fairness, I do think still that this is a good video because we know that the human attention span, especially when it comes to YouTube videos, isn't that great. And he spent more than 3/4 of his video listing the evidence for evolution before even getting to the flood. Right. So most people who are watching the video are probably thinking, okay, so evolution is real now? I think, yeah. As far as videos goes, I think this is fairly good.
Yep. Thank you, Kurt Wise, for bringing more people to evolution. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we can go to the next. We have 13 seconds left, but I think we should leave him in this pose because this is a great pose for him to have. My boobies will be this big. Sorry.
Well, once he starts on that on the estrogen, he can have them as big as he wants. No.
It's that so
what is
so
this, a word?
Jackson,
that
that
word
is
for the wise. This is the article we were looking at. Yeah.
That's gender affirming surgery. And Frank Turek has had that. Although he's against it.
Frank Turek had gender affirming surgery? What was that?
He had his boobies removed.
Wait,
I'm not kidding.
Wait, what?
That's a thing. Oh, that happened.
That's actually very, very common. Like a lot of men are ashamed of having like slightly
man boobs.
Large. Yeah.
So Turek had his removed, which is gender affirming surgery, which he's against, but not when it's him.
Okay. Well, that's true. He is his account on Twitter is very funny because it's just like I'm almost certain it's just a bot. Like they have they have like 3 different things they can change out that's like, should Christians argue about veganism, or something like that. It's like they can switch out any one of those, or like, should evangelicals care about trans rights, or something. So I don't think he runs that account, but anyway.
I don't think he's ever replied to anything, so it's probably just the staffer posting his comments there.
True, probably. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Debunked.
All right, so this dude is what's he called? He's like a Catholic creationist or something, which don't typically see. Usually the creationists I meet are Protestants. Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Oh, okay. So he's this video. Oh, okay, I totally forgot. I need to put that in our in the description to show people. I forget what the title of it is. sorry,
The
you
title
brought
is
this up.
Catholic Evolutionary Biologist with a PhD from Oxford discusses the problem with neo-Darwinism.
That's what it was. Okay, that's right. My bad. My mistake. So this guy is an evolutionary biologist. He's
With
saying
a
discuss problems with neo-Darwinism.
with a PhD from Oxford.
So
We need to mention
what I'm
that.
willing to bet
Important.
before we start is again. So he's not a creationist. He's not a young Earth creationist. So just get that out of the way. He's not a young Earth creationist. I'm willing to bet he's like a Discovery Institute sort of guy. If he's talking about neo-Darwinism, but he's not a young Earth creationist. So that's good. Because typically, I really don't see very many Catholics who are young Earth creationists. That's not a thing I typically run into. Usually, it's Protestants, like your Baptists or your evangelicals. So he's an evolutionary biologist, and he's going to talk about his problems with neo-Darwinism. All right. Anything we want to add before we jump into it? Or
I forgot to mention, like, before we finish off the wise thing, like the article that we found last time also addresses the stromatolites as well. So I don't know if you want me to mention that, or if you want to skip that and go into this video.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, the article, the relevant part in the article says, for these blocks to be physical evidence and confirmation of a collapse of the continental margin at the beginning of the flood, due to the 4 to 6 hour earthquake, his model posits the following would have to occur. And the author of this article lists like 9 things that had to occur for this model, for Rice's model to work, and two of them include like undisturbed stromatolites formed by colonial bacteria, like it's in cold water. And again, it's the same problem that we mentioned before. Stromatolites need to grow very slowly, and they require very calm conditions to grow as well. So yeah,
right.
But again,
the same with coral, right? Like coral requires very calm conditions, and it slowly grows. And they're like, no, it totally grew super rapid under the flood that messed with everything. And okay,
all right. Okay, if anybody is interested, again, the link is again in the live chat. So if you want to know more about it, I think this article goes in pretty good detail about it. Okay,
yeah.
Sorry about that. We can continue with the new video.
No, that's fine. That's perfect. I do actually want to see. What is this guy's name? What is his name? So,
Christopher Tew.
That's his name.
You mean in the? Oh, sorry. You mean in the video?
Yeah. Who is?
Yeah.
Dr. Rolu.
I think they might introduce him, Jackson, if we start the video.
Romulo. All right. Let's start the video.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today you're going to have a special treat.
Okay.
I recorded a podcast a little while ago with a fella named Romulo, who is Brazilian and by way of Oxford, that is Oxford, England, where he holds from where he obtained a PhD in evolutionary biology.
Is that his first or his last name?
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. But so he's Brazilian. He's Brazilian. So a few days back, I was on a show, a trivia show, and turns out Brazil is the largest country in South America, and so I came up with why that is. Do you know why that is, Jackson? Why Brazil's the largest?
Why?
So every Brazilian can get as far away from Otangelo as humanly possible. That's my dad joke for the day.
I appreciate it. That's very funny. What is his name? Romulo. But like what is his actual name? Romulo. I just looked up. The first thing you see is like Reddit, and it's someone repeating all the arguments he's going to make. But what is his name? What does this do? Is it Oxford? So Romulo Oxford evolutionary biology? Is this him? University of Oxford? This might be him. I think this is him. Okay. Romulo Carleo? I have no idea how to pronounce that. Is that this guy? Yeah, this is definitely this guy. Okay, University of Oxford zoology graduate student. Okay, so it's definitely this guy, Romulo Carleo. I've never heard of him. Okay, all right. So it looks like he's published some. Are these his published papers? I see uploads. Oh, I guess I'll put his name in the side chat here so everybody can see it.
Is this guy Kennedy Hall, the one who is now on screen? Kennedy Hall. Like, I'm seeing someone Kennedy Hall here.
I guess so. This is his name, Romulo.
All right.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. Let's see. Google Scholar.
Okay. I also see a ResearchGate profile as well.
Okay, so he has put out some papers recently. Okay.
7 publications.
Hey, that's not bad. I mean, that's not bad. These are all very recent.
No.
So.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. Okay, so he's posted some normal papers, like as one in Nature, one in the Royal Society, Frontiers in Molecular, whatever. And then there's one a little way down. It says Human Origins Revisited on the Recognition of Rationality and the Antiquity of the Human Race. That sounds intriguing. I am very curious. I would like to see. Can I has a look? Since its inception, the church maintained that the human species began to exist as a single couple, Adam and Eve, who were created directly by God. Adam from the dust of the earth and Eve from Adam's side. The early Christian teaching contained 2 important truths. Firstly, I'm not going to read all that. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. Shows that despite different interpretations of Genesis 1-3, the understandings of how humans originated was completely uniform among Orthodox authors. This view was challenged in 1859 by our boy, Chucky Darwin. Okay. 1950, encyclical evolutionary biology implied special creation body was no longer held as the ordinary Catholic teaching, but just as an alternative hypothesis to be weighed against evolutionary hypotheses. Blah, 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 blah. I don't care about this. I'm sorry, I'm reading. I'm quickly trying to see what are his conclusions of. Okay, to summarize. So basically, it looks like he's trying to. Oh wait, hold on. Is this it? Maybe I'll have to read this between our next show, between now and the next show, because I'm very curious. This paper. However,
which paper?
Oh, sorry, I'll post it here. That would be copy link address. I'm putting it here in our live chat. There we go.
Oh, that's a very weird publication.
There would be no room for the intermediate forms between humans and apes, the so-called hominids. Consequently, the act of hominization would be clearly detectable on the empirical level. There would be a time and place where one individual of a given species would miraculously transform into the first man. This is the only biologically and metaphysically acceptable position that avoids the catch-22 indicated above. For this reason, the theory cannot be deemed evolutionary in any relevant sense. So basically, he's trying to understand how can it be the case that there are ape men, but also God created humans. Recently, William Lane Craig revived the idea by postulating that the first human was Homo heidelbergensis due to a regulatory mutation, perhaps divinely caused, that affected a change in brain functioning. Oh, thank goodness, anthropologist William Lane Craig is on the case.
I
Good
also
gravy.
see a section called "Matter cannot evolve the intellect." A largely unchallenged evolutionary assumption is that larger brains correlate with higher intelligence. For example, Craig claims that Homo habilis was almost certainly not human, given its
Cool.
brain size of. Cool story,
Yeah, right.
Craig.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Oh my god. Okay. That's so stupid. I'm so glad that we have the William Lane Craig here to tell us about paleoanthropology. Man, all of our fears are
Where was
allayed.
it published in? Like I don't.
I think there's
It says
some irony in the fact that William
it
Lane
says
Craig says
Studia
that
Gilsoniana.
Mhm.
there's some
It says what?
irony. There's some irony in the fact that William Lane Craig says that intelligence couldn't have evolved. Can't put my finger on
Well.
it exactly, but
The thing is, the thing about Craig, I mean, aside from his obviously abhorrent beliefs about like the Canaanites had it coming, is that like, I mean, he's not a young Earth creationist. They got to give him that. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think he's an intelligent design advocate because I've seen him like in a video arguing with Stephen Meyer. So credit where credit is due, I guess. But in essence, at the end of the day, you still have to have Adam and Eve, right? So one way or another, you have to shoehorn them in. And now you can take what we know about biology and you can say, okay, well, maybe God, did a little shenanigan here or there, and that's where humans came from.
Uh-oh.
I mean, what?
I found something like you know these publications to the Gilsoniana. Like I sorry if I'm mispronouncing it.
No, I don't know about it. Tell me about it.
I am now pretty sure it's a philosophy journal.
Oh,
and that
shock
explains
and awe.
why Craig is mentioned.
Well, it also mentions as Stephen C. Meyer puts it, other sources of information must help arrange individual proteins into systems of proteins into distinctive cell types into tissues, and blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there's literally citing Darwin's doubt as a source. Yeah, so yeah, of course, obviously, I mean, they're citing William Lane Craig on matters of paleoanthropology, and they're citing Stephen Meyer on matters of genetics. Like, I think you could disregard this like almost at like face value. Just with those citations, I think you could like just disregard this because who cares? This paper clearly isn't about like, does it matter what the data says? No, it's about fitting the data that currently exists into their pre-formed ideas about what humans' place in the universe is. Like, that's what this is about. So, okay, anyway, I've yapped long enough. Let's listen to him. Let's hear him out.
So, in this creation series, what we've tried to do is find the best experts possible in various fields. And
that's so
at some
funny.
point, one of my supporters reached out and said, listen, it's going to sound crazy. There's a PhD in evolutionary biology who obtained his certifications from Oxford University, arguably the most prestigious university in the world, in the very field of study that has to do with evolution. And he is here to tell you that there are reasons to doubt the theory of evolution based on the strict scientific data that is widely known in the field. So I reached out and we had a conversation, and he graciously came on my show. Now, a little while ago, there were, certain Catholic apologists and influencers who took issue with my creationism and tried to rake me over the coals for being, I don't know, a bumbling fundamentalist. Well, although I'm sure these men are much smarter than I don't think that their intellects in this capacity could hold a candle to the certification and background of the individual I speak to in this show. Call me crazy.
Peter, he's very mad. he's like the way he's speaking.
Especially this freeze frame. Yeah.
Yeah, he's so mad. I don't even know. I have no idea what this beef is about. I don't know who did this, but I really want to know now because this is very funny. His voice just like dropped. He was like, some people think that I'm just a fundamentalist and I don't know what I'm talking about. Like, okay,
I think,
all right, dude, you
I
sound
think I've
not mad
seen
when you
this
say
guy
that.
before. I think he also did a few debates, and I don't think he's a very nice guy, to be honest. If he's the same one, but I'm not entirely sure yet.
So if I
Okay.
can get this straight, like he talked to people, like he who he disagreed with, and he got so mad that he scoured the internet for somebody who is smarter than him, but also also agrees with him, to as his own defense, basically, like basically running to your parents, or in this case, running to an expert for as a shield. It's
Yeah,
weird.
which,
It's really weird.
I guess I don't mind that if you frame it as I don't know much about this topic. Here's someone who knows more than me.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm open to ideas. But like again, he's not really doing that. He's just looking for someone who will agree with his particular interpretation of religion. Also, Savage. Oh, I can't see your whole name. Hold on, Savage. Poultice Cuisine Cobra for $2. Warning: appeal to authority detected. Yeah, right. So whoever he's talking about, who called him a bumbling fundamentalist or whatever, made him very, very mad. Now he's saying, well, I have a friend who has a degree and he says I'm right, which, okay.
There's always a very good reason, Jackson, when they put with a PhD in the title of the video.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I'm sure we'll hear what arguments this dude has, so.
But I do think that someone with the highest degree possible from arguably the most prestigious university in the world,
he's doing it again
in the very field of evolutionary biology, probably has a better grasp on the science than talking heads from places like Catholic Answers. I'm just saying that's probably the case.
Okay, he's doing it
So
again.
I look forward, my friends, to your debunking videos showing why I'm
debunking.
He's
that Canadian? Debunking?
He's so mad the outer wall of his house is moving back and forth. I don't know if you've noticed, but that's how mad this guy is.
He's Andrea, I probably mispronounced your name and I do apologize. Andrea, thank you for finding that. Thursday event this week is a talk by okay, I mean that's fine. He's entirely welcome to have his opinion on how evolution fits into the how it fits into his religion or whatever. That's entirely his prerogative. Debunking. That's I've never heard that pronunciation before.
Debunking.
That's amazing. I love that. Hey, I've never heard of this guy. I've never heard of. Do you know who he's having this beef with? Andrew? Is that what you prefer, Andrew? Okay. Do you know who he's like having beef with? He said Catholic Answer. I assume that's some organization. I don't know. Okay. All right. Anyway, we can keep going.
A bumbling fundamentalist. Now, I will say as well before we continue, the opinions of Mr. Romulo are his own, and they are not those of any institution he represents. I want to make that very clear. It is him as a private individual having...
Hold on. He just said this man has the highest degree possible, and he has an opinion, and this opinion is his own. So the highest degree possible doesn't really matter because he's not... I'm already confused. Because he's now making excuses that a guy with a PhD might say some things that a guy with a PhD would never say, or something. This is a weird.
My main problem with this is that it's very clear to me that he brought this guy on out of spite and not out of genuine curiosity. That is my main issue with this. But anyway, let's continue. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe he'll make some great points. Who knows? All right, we're gonna find
conversation as a Catholic who happens to have a background in this field.
Which, remember, guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
I apologize for doing this again because I just remembered. Kenneth Miller is also a Catholic who is an evolutionary biologist. Just want to throw that out there. Like, he's also...
And you know what, Jackson? His opinions aren't just his own. There's scientific...
Correct, he writes textbooks.
There's a scientific background behind his opinions.
Yeah.
Always enjoy the show. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here with Dr. Romulo, Brazilian, coming to us from merry old England, the mother country of my country of Canada. And I'm very excited to talk with this friend of mine today about evolutionary theory from a Catholic perspective, and actually basically just kind of the science behind it, and why someone who has a PhD from Oxford in evolutionary biology can actually say with confidence that there's probably some monkey business, pun intended, going on with evolutionary theory. Dr. Romulo, thanks for coming on the show.
Whoa, okay. Time out.
Thank
Yes, Nestle, you're right. We won't make it past the first 5 minutes. I just want to point out, right off the bat, he's accusing scientists of like academic fraud and conspiracy. And as he pointed out himself, like less than a minute ago, he's not an expert in this topic. He's not a scientist. He's just a dude. I love when people who aren't scientists do this. When they go out of their way to say, "Oh, the scientists must be in they must have a pact or something, or read out edicts because they disagree with me." Like, no, you're just an idiot. That's why they disagree with you. I don't know what else to tell you.
So I would like to talk to this PhD from Oxford, Brazilian, and ask him what the pact is that the scientists are in on and why they're lying. Because he must know, right? He has a PhD, so he's part of the club.
Correct.
So he could shed some light on why scientists are lying and name some names, preferably. That would be fun. But
I'm messaging Paul right now. Messaging Paul Agia. I messaged him. It is imperative to me that I hear you say debunking.
Debunking. Maybe
I should reach out to Vice right now too.
I don't think that that's a Canadian thing, Jackson. I just think that was him.
That's the best thing I've ever heard. Debunking.
Yeah, debunking. Well, I mean, there's your title for the next video, right? Debunking the debunking. Debunking
the debunking.
I mean, it's a thing.
Debunking the anti-evolution apologists, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Keep going.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I am an evolutionary biologist. I'm a mainstream scientist. I have a PhD in zoology from the University of Oxford. I did a master's degree back in Brazil in one of the federal universities we have there. I studied 1 year in the United States in a Florida International University, did one internship at Yale University, and now I'm working as a geneticist in Kew Gardens in London, working with disease and plant. Cool. I was, interestingly enough, I was raised Catholic, but I apostatized very early on when I was around 13. And of course, going to academia, that atheism got solidified, and I became a pure materialist. And I only came back to the faith, like less than 5 years ago.
James.
Mostly through, of course, the grace of God, but
I was an
the secondary cause that he used, beside a bunch of things, was Thomistic philosophy and Aristotelian metaphysics as well. So that was very important to me in studying that. And just to make a quick disclaimer, some of the things I'm going to say here, they are my personal view. They do not represent necessarily the institutions that I work for or the institutions that I've worked previously. But yeah, happy to be.
Which I think is Creationist speech for I need to say this or I'm going to lose my job.
Right, like this is like the reverse of Lehigh University saying about like Michael Behe, like we're not with that guy.
Yeah,
we don't believe him either.
He does not speak for us.
He does not want to be in Expelled Part 2. That's why he's saying it.
Yeah,
he's also doing the Kirk Cameron thing, like, oh, I was an atheist. I believe in the god of materialism.
Yeah, I don't. There are so many people.
The moment someone
academia that are religious, like, come on.
The moment someone comes on a camera and says that there's something funny going on with evolution, and they say, I used to be an atheist, I know for a fact that this person has never been an atheist and doesn't even know the definition of atheist. Because
I mean, it's entirely possible that he was just like, oh yeah, I'm not sure if
it's
possible that like
I hated God. I hated God, and I just wanted to sin, and that's.
Well, that one it usually comes with it. Yeah, I hated God, wanted to sin. I just wanted to have sex and do drugs and all that jazz. That's always part of the story. Which I have been an atheist. I don't think I've ever really been religious. I was raised religious. I don't really think I've ever been religious. But when I realized at like 11 that I wasn't religious, but that I didn't believe in God anymore, like that never gave me cause to do drugs or get laid. Like those never entered my mind. I don't do drugs to this day. I don't smoke. I don't drink. Like I don't care about any of that sort of stuff. So I do like rock and roll. Rock and roll is great. So
And we all noticed that Jackson left out the getting laid part.
Anyway, moving on with the
video. But this is just the thing. If you see a website that says family values, you're convinced that website's not about family values. It's always the opposite. If there's truth in a name, you will know that the thing they do not care about is truth.
Except for Lisa for truth. She's the only exception.
Okay, granted. But
other than her, yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So
here. Excellent. So that's a pretty crazy story, going through the secular institutions.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
I know Brazil is traditionally a Catholic country, but I know that like everywhere else in the Western world, there's a lot of problems with modernism and so forth in the church, and then to go through Yale and Oxford and come out with a very controversial opinion about evolution, which is kind of the main dogma of the materialist world we live in.
And is accepted by the Catholic Church, by the way.
Right. Yes. That's
specifically
like the Pope is fine with evolution. My goodness.
So.
Oh, hey.
That must be the modernism in the church, Jackson. I think that's what he's referring to.
Wait, but bear in mind, maybe the materialistic worldview has that the rabbit hole of that goes deeper than you think.
True.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that he would argue things like, yes, Smitty, modernism, the architectural style. I'm sure he would say that, like, the Pope being okay with gay people is also like postmodernism in the church or something. I'm sure he's got some very sussy opinions about a lot of things that we consider very normal. So, it's whatever.
That is pretty incredible. And I commend you for it, because I would imagine that every once in a while there might be difficulties with holding that position. But
pause.
You're here to tell us that.
Pause. Hold on. Give me a second.
You're not going to let him finish one sentence, right?
No, shush, shush. I need to hear this. Peter, shush. Lame. Paul does not say debunking. He says debunking.
Yeah.
All right, we can keep going.
These critiques you have of evolutionary theory are actually just based in sound science. It's not. We don't have to appeal to the Bible. In fact, for the viewers, Romulo is going to talk to us from the.
Quick question. If the critiques of evolution are based in solid science and not to the Bible, why is it his personal opinion and not the opinion of the people that he works for? Who?
The materialistic worldview, Peter. Come on.
Of course, yeah.
This consistency isn't a thing. You mentioned it earlier, Jackson. Something's off.
Google debunk.
Yeah. Debunking.
Like modernism is so ingrained. It's even in the very architecture of the buildings, man. Like come on, Peter. Come on, Peter. You know this.
Yeah. I think
that's great. I love that.
I think he's already debunking his own debunking of evolution.
Perspective of an old Earth perspective, because we know that in the sort of world of, let's call it, creationist evolutionary dialogue, when someone says that they believe the world is 10,000, 600,000 years, 6,000 years old or whatever, then of course they're just going to be dismissed anyway. But you can actually show what you need to show. And talk about it from the perspective of playing by their rules. So, whatever you want to do, let's get into it.
Yeah, I think for the viewers, the
anyone else think this guy is completely annoyed by the guy with the beard? Because look at his facial expression. He's not having fun.
Like his expression is a bit flat, yeah. But
yeah.
I don't mind.
Most important thing to understand is that the word evolution is extremely equivocal. So when there is a conversation between scientists and the layperson, sometimes there are, a lack of an overlap, and sometimes even within the academia, evolution can mean different things.
I would agree with that.
So when we say, and we hear a lot, and I've had this conversation with many people, when a scientist says that evolution is a fact, what he's actually saying is that he's basing his definition of evolution on population genetics. So he's pretty much saying that it is a fact that changes in allele frequencies happen over time. Alleles are just ladders of the DNA, so to speak, and genes have different variants. Like you remember that from probably high school when you have the big A or the small a. So there are variations within the genome, and over time these changes can occur, and this is observable, right? The Darwin finches, for example, when you have the changes in beak size over time, if those changes are genetic, if there's something genetic about the bird that makes the beak be that certain size, and the beak is increasing over time because it's adaptive. Therefore, there would be a change at the genetic level over time, what we call the change in allele frequencies. Is it going to the
epigenetics route?
So
we'll see.
If that's evolution, then of
so
course
far, so good.
This happens, right?
Yeah.
Then, but when we speak about evolution with someone outside the academia, actually, let me just show the slides real quick.
Okay.
Hold on. So when we look at it from a scientific point of view, then it's okay. And when we talk about it with someone outside of academia, now we're getting into strawman territory, I think.
Well, this already looks very odd because it says universal common descent is an axiom of naturalism, which that raises some enormous red flags. I did say I'm willing to bet this guy is like Discovery Institute type, and I'm already getting that's already starting to be the vibe.
Speciation is neo-Darwinism?
Yeah, neo-Darwinism. Neo-Darwinism
and drift, of course. Drift is also neo-Darwinism. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I don't really have a problem with with what it's saying, like so mechanisms causing change in frequency leading to speciation. Like I don't, that's fine. That sure is representative of neo-Darwinism, at least. Would we say? I don't know if I'd say. Well, I guess it kind of depends, doesn't it? Because like even Darwin talked about like drift in a sense, but he didn't call it drift.
Did Darwin say? I don't remember him saying. Like I'm
Chapter 2
pretty
of
sure.
Origin,
I'm
he
pretty sure
says-
pretty sure that genetic drift was like later.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the formalization of it's like in the 60s, but I mean, you could say that like there are, like Darwin mentioned it, quote, in that like he mentioned that polymorphisms can fluctuate like at random in populations. That was in chapter 2 of Origin. So like, in some sense, like, but again, if you're saying
but he didn't emphasize the significance of that. Like,
no, not really. But also, like, I don't know if I'd say. Would you say drift is neo-Darwinism though? Because it came later. Neo-Darwinism was like the 30s into the 40s, but genetic drift, the formalization of that wasn't until like the late 60s into the 70s. But I don't know. It doesn't really matter, I guess.
These are like at this point, Darwinism, neo-Darwinism, they are just buzzwords. Like nobody, pretty much nobody outside the ID creationism uses these terms anymore. Unless you're like I think like I remember Arnold like in one debate mentioning that the only people in academia who still uses Darwinism is like in England, basically. They still use like Darwinism.
I think a few older evolutionary biologists like Jerry Coyne and Dawkins, who is So Dawkins is British, but Coyne is American. But yeah, if you talk to like older biologists, you will often hear that that like they'll say, "Oh, I'm a neo-Darwinist." Like, I don't use that term because I think it's kind of, I don't like it.
I'm a neo-Newtonian. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Zach Hancock actually did a video on the history of Darwinism and neo-Darwinism. He talks about like it should be thought of more as like a time period of evolutionary thought rather than like a particular theory. At any rate, like the point of neo-Darwinism is really just that you have mechanisms of evolution like natural selection and sexual selection, and these are acting on particulate variations as laid out by Mendel and like Thomas Hunt Morgan, and this is what's getting you towards speciation. So that very broadly is like neo-Darwinism. Now, whether you want to argue
we are now a post-neo-Darwinism,
right.
Post-neo.
Yeah, whether you want to argue that like whether genetic drift is also neo-Darwinism or evo-devo or like epigenetics, like is it? I don't think so, but also like I don't think it matters really. Like I don't know. I would just kind of say those are like the standard, like the current evolutionary theories. Just kind of what I would say.
I would just like I'm only using like neo-Darwinism or Darwinism as a historical footnote, basically. Right. Like, these are the types of ideas that were proposed by these group of people. Like again in the so-called eclipse of Darwinism, you have different schools of thought. You have the saltationism or the mutationists and the Darwinists, basically. Like
right.
And also the Lamarckianists as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It's Wait, hold on. Let me go back. DM Google Debunker Wing says it's true they're just creationist dog whistles at this point. Yeah, basically. I don't really know anyone who's not super old who uses neo-Darwinism and is referring to evolutionary biology as a whole. Like it's just the creationist dog whistle. Anyway, all right, we can keep going.
Yeah.
That's probably going to be helpful. So I just made this diagram, right? So you have within the ellipse, you have what we call the neo-Darwinian or modern synthesis view, which is the most accepted version of evolutionism within the academia, right? There are other versions that are coming up, which maybe I'm going to speak later. But you have, within the neo-Darwinian framework, you have the causes of evolution. For example, mutations, natural selection, drift. This causes lead to change in trait frequencies over time, or the allele frequencies. I usually use trait because it's easier to understand, like the beak size, for example, but usually it has to be at the genetic level.
Okay.
Which is the effect. And then if you have that happening over long periods of time, you're going to lead to speciation. So if you have two populations, they get separated, let's say two birds, and they are, they're different kind of seeds that they can feed from in the different islands. Perhaps larger beaks in one island are going to be favored. Smaller beaks in another island are going to be favored. If they remain separate, maybe they're going to diverge. Some of these birds are going to have larger beak over time, and the other smaller beak. And if the changes are dramatically at the evolutionary level or ecological level, whatever, then a scientist would probably argue that we have now two different species, right? And that would be the speciation, right? The problem is, as I said, usually, just to give an example, there is one mechanism we hear a lot about natural selection, but for example, genetic drift is another mechanism for genetic change over time, right? So for example, imagine you have a population of beetles, they're the same species, that you have individuals that are brown, other individuals are green, and by pure chance, you're walking down your alley and you step on these beetles by pure accident, and you happen to kill more green beetles than brown beetles, right? Okay. Now, if the color of these beetles is caused by a variant at the gene level, there will be a change in allele frequency just by this killing of the green beetles, because now the frequency of the green allele goes down, right?
True.
For an evolutionary,
is it just me, or is this kind of a bastardized version of the moth? Because
no,
it's fine. No, he's fine. What he's saying is fine.
No, I'm just so.
The moth experiment, the peppered moth thing, that was natural selection.
Yes, but
that was about natural selection.
Yeah,
but it's
the way he's explaining this is fine. Like this is fine.
Biologists, this example that I've just given, it's an evolutionary change, right? So by accidentally killing beetles, you cause an evolutionary change.
Well, sort of, right? I mean, like the next generation will have.
I think any person would be completely comfortable in accepting this kind of process as true. The thing is, when you're a layperson, when someone speaks to you about evolution, what you usually think is this, right? You think that life started 3.8 billion years ago in a pond,
types, is he?
And from that molecule,
I think he's about to do the macro evolution. Yeah,
and I think many scientists would be comfortable to say that that's also evolution, right? And some of them would say that process that I've just described of changes in allele frequencies over time is able to cause all this divergency, right? So you have this, people talking past each other, right? Because if I'm thinking of this graph or this tree, and someone tells me, well, I know evolution is a fact, but they're thinking on simply allele frequencies changing over time, you see that there is a mismatch in the conversation, right? So I hope I made myself clear, right? So
yeah, can I just ask I want to ask a qualifier, because when I hear this information, I think of terms, so there's like what we would call microevolution or adaptation, and then we have the macro. So I think everybody totally is fine with this idea that, various species of plants and animals and humans, they adapt to their surroundings, and, certain characteristics don't make it, whether by usefulness or just chance, like being stepped on by somebody's dress shoe as a beetle, then you're going to have a change. But that's a very different thing than, you step on a bunch of beetles and then the beetles become a butterfly. That's a different kind of change. Am I onto something there with that distinction?
All right, pause.
Yeah, that's.
I just want to point out that, like, up to this point, this is like functionally indistinguishable from a Kent Hovind lecture.
Yes,
like, that's what it is. I mean,
how he explains genetic drift is accurate. So it's not completely the same as Kent Hovind, because Kent Hovind gets everything wrong. Yeah,
but like, I mean, up to this, like, at this point, the whole, oh well, they're talking about, oh, I'm talking about microevolution, they're talking about macroevolution. He explained.
We are now nosediving. Yes.
Yep, we are now nosediving into creationism. He explained macroevolution when he gave his explanation of speciation, because we're not going to get a definition of macroevolution, or if we are, it's going to be a change from one kind of thing to another. Like, this dude is the top guy, the Duck Dynasty reject is he is just a bumbling fundamentalist, and this dude is the guy he's talking to, the biologist, is I guarantee he's like a intelligent design advocate, so yeah.
Well,
so
he cited Dembski in his paper, right?
Meyer.
Oh, Meyer. Oh, Stephen Meyer.
Yeah, so he cited Meyer. So very, very. I mean, like, he's at least intelligent design. I'm willing to bet that he is like an old Earth creationist or intelligent design advocate. He's not a young Earther. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, so okay, so we'll leave the rest of it for next time. We're at the 2-hour mark. So we're gonna call the show. So yay, here we go. So next time we're gonna talk about fun micro versus macro evolution. Yay!
And debunking. We're gonna keep the debunking going.
We are going to keep debunking.
Yeah, we're going to keep debunking.
I am definitely going to start watching the debate. So, yay.
Yeah, I think I need to get in touch with Arn because he started 2 live streams and those are gone. So either he got a strike or something happened. So I don't know.
Oh, gotcha. Alrighty. Well, thank you both for being here. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Nestle.
Can I do a quick commercial?
Go ahead.
Okay, so on Tuesday, I'm going to be back working with Natalia Reagan again. So if people are interested in wildlife conservation, because that's probably going to be the topic, hop over to Natalia Reagan, subscribe to her channel, because live shows are coming. So
nice. All right, and thank you everybody in the live chat for watching. We appreciate all of you, and we will see everybody next week, I hope. So bye everybody.